The streets of Dhaka teem with life. A cacophony of rickshaw bells, street vendors' calls, and the chatter of millions fills the air. But beneath this vibrant surface lies a hidden crisis. It is a story of desperation, exploitation, and a massive flow of money that is bleeding Bangladesh dry. This is the story of illegal migration between India and Bangladesh. The sheer scale of the problem is staggering. Thousands of Indians, mostly from West Bengal and Bihar, cross the porous 4,000-kilometer border into Bangladesh every year. They come seeking jobs, a chance at a better life. Some are lured by the promises of quick money, unaware of the dangers that await them. These migrants are a shadow population, invisible in official statistics but deeply woven into the fabric of Bangladeshi society. They work in construction, textiles, and as day laborers, their presence both a boon and a bane to the Bangladeshi economy. However, the true cost of their presence is far higher than anyone imagined. For many Indians seeking a way into Bangladesh, the journey begins with a whisper, a contact, a promise of safe passage. The porous border, marked by rivers, hills, and vast stretches of open land, becomes a convenient point of entry. Bribes change hands, documents are forged, and under the cover of darkness, people slip through the cracks. The methods employed are as varied as the people themselves. Some pay exorbitant fees to middlemen who guide them through a labyrinthine network of villages and back roads. Others rely on family ties, using kinship networks to evade detection. Still, others take their chances, braving the elements and the ever-present risk of apprehension. The journey is fraught with danger. Many fall prey to unscrupulous traffickers who exploit their desperation. Women and girls are particularly vulnerable, often ending up in forced labor or the sex trade. For those who do make it across, a life of uncertainty awaits. The economic impact of this illegal migration is profound, particularly on Bangladesh. A staggering $10 billion is siphoned out of the country every year. This money, earned by Indian migrants working in Bangladesh, is sent back home through informal channels known as hundi or hawala. These networks operate outside the purview of banks and financial institutions, making them impossible to track. The money, often transferred through a complex web of agents and intermediaries, bypasses all regulations and taxation. This massive outflow of untaxed funds has crippling consequences for the Bangladeshi economy. The $10 billion drain represents nearly 3% of Bangladesh's GDP. It exacerbates the country's dollar shortage, fuels inflation, and directly impacts the livelihoods of Bangladeshi workers. The money that should be circulating within the Bangladeshi economy, contributing to its growth and development, is instead being funneled out, enriching individuals and fueling a shadow economy. While Indians cross into Bangladesh seeking opportunity, the reverse flow, albeit smaller, tells a different story. Bangladeshis, driven by poverty, lack of jobs, and political instability, risk their lives to escape to countries like India, Malaysia, and the Middle East. Their journey is often one of desperation, with many falling prey to human traffickers who lure them with false promises of a better life. The methods they employ are equally desperate, often involving dangerous sea voyages in rickety boats or arduous treks through dense jungles. The risks are immense, with many perishing along the way. Those who do survive often end up in exploitative situations, trapped in forced labor, debt bondage, or worse. The human cost of this illegal migration is immeasurable. Families are torn apart, lives are lost, and the most vulnerable are subjected to unimaginable suffering. The lure of a better life often overshadows the very real dangers, turning dreams into nightmares. Section 5. The Blame Game. The issue of illegal migration between India and Bangladesh is a complex one with no easy solutions. Both governments acknowledge the problem but often resort to blaming each other, engaging in a political blame game that does little to address the root causes. India points to Bangladesh's porous borders and lax enforcement as the primary reasons for the influx of Bangladeshi migrants. Bangladesh, in turn, accuses India of not doing enough to stop the flow of its citizens into Bangladesh and cracking down on the informal hundi networks that facilitate the transfer of illegal funds. The reality is far more nuanced. Corruption, poverty, lack of economic opportunities, and political instability in both countries contribute to the problem. Without addressing these underlying issues, the flow of people across the border will continue unabated. Section 6. A Web of Complicity. The persistence of illegal migration between India and Bangladesh points to a deeper malaise, a web of complicity that spans both sides of the border. Corrupt officials, both within the governments and at the border, turn a blind eye to the human trafficking and smuggling operations that flourish in the shadows. Politicians often exploit the issue for electoral gain, using inflammatory rhetoric to stoke fear and division. The result is a climate of impunity, where those who profit from the exploitation of vulnerable people operate with little fear of consequence. Breaking this cycle of complicity requires a multi-pronged approach. Strengthening border security, cracking down on corruption, and addressing the root causes of migration, such as poverty and lack of opportunity, are crucial steps. Section 7. Towards resolution. The human tragedy unfolding across the India-Bangladesh border demands urgent action. While both governments have taken some steps, including increased border patrols and crackdowns on human traffickers, these efforts remain largely ineffective. A more comprehensive and collaborative approach is needed, one that addresses the issue from both a humanitarian and a security perspective. Investing in sustainable development initiatives in Bangladesh, particularly in areas with high poverty and unemployment, could reduce the economic incentive for migration. Creating legal pathways for labor migration, with proper documentation and worker protections, could help curb the exploitation of desperate individuals. Strengthening border security, while crucial, should not come at the expense of human rights. Technology can play a role, but it must be implemented ethically and transparently. Equally important is the need to address the demand side of the equation. Cracking down on businesses that employ undocumented migrants and dismantling the networks that profit from their exploitation are crucial steps. Section 8. A Call to Action. The crisis of illegal migration between India and Bangladesh is not just a border issue. It is a humanitarian crisis, an economic drain, and a security challenge that requires our immediate attention. The human cost is simply too high to ignore. We can no longer afford to turn a blind eye to the suffering, the exploitation, and the loss of life. The time for blame games is over. The time for action is now. We need political will, regional cooperation, and a shared commitment to finding lasting solutions. Only then can we hope to stem the tide of illegal migration and build a future where people are not forced to risk their lives in search of a better tomorrow.